So, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking in recent days about key Russian hockey figures of the 80s and 90s, including McGillney and Mishkin. But today we're going to be talking about McGillney and Fedorov's line mate, the great Pavel Bure, and how he came to the NHL, a very unique situation. Now, 5'10", 191, born March 31st, 1971. From an early age, it was predicted he would do well because he was the son of a very noted Russian swimmer, Vladimir Bure. Now, Vladimir had dreams of Pavel becoming, again, a pro swimmer, but he aspired to play hockey at an early age. He attended his first tryout with CSKA Moscow Hockey School at the age of 6, despite his limited skating ability. Until that point, Bure had played only ball hockey on the streets. After Bure failed to impress in his tryout, his father told him if he did not show improvement within 2 months, he would draw him from the hockey school. By age 11, he was named the best forward in his league. Around that time, in July 82, Bure was selected as one of 3 young Russian players to practice with Wayne Gretzky and Soviet goalie Vladislav Trekat in a taped television special. At age 12, his parents separated and he remained with his mother. By the time he was 14 years old, he was named to the Central Red Army's junior team. In 91, he joined his father and brother Valerie in moving to North America as he embarked on a national NHL career with the Vancouver Canucks. His mother arrived 2 months later. He settled initially in LA, where Vladimir continued to train and coach both Valerie and Pavel in hockey and physical conditioning. However, both became estranged from their father, along with his second wife and her half-sister Katya, by 1998. Neither brother has explained the reason for the split. Of course, Valerie ended up dating and marrying Candace Cameron and playing with Montreal and other key teams. Now, in December 86, he embarked on a tour of Canada with the Soviet national midget team from Ottawa to Vancouver. Nearly 5 years before Bure made his NHL debut with the Canucks in 91 at the Pacific Coliseum, he played his first game at his future home rink as part of the tour. Bure also earned another opportunity to meet Gretzky, as well as defenseman Paul Coffey, with a team stop in Edmonton to play at Northlands Coliseum. Now, at CSKA Moscow between 87 and 91, at age 16, he began his first season. He was invited to the senior club's training camp for 88, and although he was deemed too young and not ready for the Soviet League, Bure earned minimal playing time, filling in for absent regulars. He made his debut in September 87 and played 5 games for the senior team, scoring 1 counter in his first contest. Now, Bure joined the club full-time in 89 and amassed 17 goals, a Soviet League record for rookies. The record would last for 18 years until Alexei Sherpanov scored 18 goals in 2007. Bure added 9 assists for 26 points to earn Rookie of the Year. His individual success helped CSKA capture the 13th consecutive Soviet title and 12th consecutive IIHF European Cup in 89. They repeated as European champions the following year. As a member of CSKA, Bure joined a lineup that featured several future NHL players, including Fedorov and McGillney, the Great Line, as well as Larionov, Fedosov, Makarov, and Konstantinov. The combination of Bure, Fedorov, and McGillney formed a promising combination for head coach Viktor Tikhonov, with the expectation to replace the previous Soviet line, the top KML foundation of Krutov, Larionov, and Makarov. The trio was short-lived as McGillney defected to play for Buffalo in 89, and Fedorov joined the Red Wings the following year. In his third and final season with the Red Army, Bure tied for the lead in team scoring with Kaminsky, tallying 46 points. His 34 goals was second in the league, by 1 goal behind Ramil Yeldashev of Sokol Kiev. Bure turned down a 3-year contract extension in August 89, which resulted in him being left off the roster of the Soviet team for the Canada Cup, probably because Tikhonov kicked him off again. So this is where it gets interesting and almost like a spy novel. Now, prior to the 89 NHL entry draft, William Houston of the Globe and Mail wrote, "The best of the group is Soviet star winger Pavel Bure, a spectacular player with outstanding speed. He is compared to Vladimir Krutov and also the late Soviet superstar of the 70s, Valery Hamelov. Now, NHL organizations were afraid he would not leave the Soviet Union to play in the NHL, thus deferring teams from selecting him early, although scouts and analysts believed he could have been selected as high as the second round had he decided." Now, get this, the USSR had broken up at this time, so it went back to the old Soviet Union. Many analysts compared him to Valery Hamelov. Edmonton Oilers scout Barry Fraser commented, "From what I've seen of him, Bure can play on any team in the NHL right now. He's quick, real quick, small, and very exciting. He may be the top player in this year's draft, but because he's from the Soviet Union, we don't analyze him the same way as a kid from the West. I don't expect him to go really early because it's still too much of a gamble to hope he will defect. Now, Bure was selected 113 overall in the 6th round by the Canucks following his rookie season with Siska. The pick was controversial as the Canucks had chosen seemingly a year ahead of his eligible draft season. At the age of 18, he was available to be chosen in the first 3 rounds of the draft, but to be selected any later, he would have needed to play at least 2 seasons, with a minimum of 11 games per season for his elite-level Soviet club, Central Red Army. While most teams believed he was ineligible, the Canucks head scout at the time, Mike Penny, in a weird coincidence, discovered Bure had played in additional exhibition international games to make him an eligible late-round draft choice a year early. This was before the internet, by the way, so someone must have tipped him off. Jack Button of the Capitals Director of Player Personnel admitted everybody would have taken him earlier. We assumed he was not eligible. You've got to give the Canucks credit for doing the homework. Now, several other teams either had similar knowledge or had pursued Bure, but there was confusion as to the legitimacy of the extra games. The Red Wings had asked league president Gil Stein about Bure's availability before their 5th-round pick, but were told he was not eligible. They later decided to select him with their 6th-round pick, 116th overall, and settle his eligibility later. The Canucks selected Bure 3 picks ahead of Detroit Stern. Meanwhile, Winnipeg Jets GM Mike Smith claimed he made an offer to the Soviet Ice Hockey Federation that would involve 3 years of transfer payments before Bure would be allowed to join the Jets. However, Smith did not have any plans to draft Bure in '89 as he believed he was ineligible. Now, as it was back then, they would allow Russians to come over, but they would take some of their contract, a big percentage, almost 80%. Now, Canucks GM Pat Quinn originally intended to draft Bure in the 8th round, but after receiving word the Oilers had similar intentions, selected him in the 6th. Following the announcement of Bure's draft, several other team representatives reportedly stormed the Met Center stage in Minnesota where the draft was being held. Not live because the late rounds were not broadcast back then. Formal complaints were filed resulting in investigation into the selection. After the pick was deemed illegal by league president John Ziegler in a press release on May 17, 1990, the Canucks appealed the decision, showing the game sheets proving Bure's participation in the additional games with the help of recent Soviet acquisition Igor Larionov. It was not until the eve of the 1990 NHL entry draft in which Bure would have been re-entered that the draft choice was upheld. Although Larionov and Fedosov had successfully spearheaded a rebellion against Soviet ice hockey officials in the late 80s that led to the Soviet players joining the NHL, Bure's transfer to Canucks was met with resistance, and the Soviet authorities forbade the Canucks to contact Bure personally. During the 1991 World Juniors, he said in an interview that he was been hesitant to defect for fears the Soviets would make things difficult for his younger brother, Valery, who was 15 at the time and playing in the junior league. Bure left Moscow with his father and brother on September 6, 1991, staying temporarily in LA. His mother arrived shortly afterwards. The Canucks then began negotiating a contract with Bure, but before one could be finalized, the issue of existing contract with the Central Red Army had to be settled. The Canucks management and officials from the Soviet Ice Hockey Federation met in late October 1991 Detroit court, where they bartered for cash settlements. After Canucks offered $200,000 US, Bure stood up in the courtroom to offer an additional $50,000, bringing the total to $250,000. The Soviet officials accepted, and Canucks management paid the full $250,000. Bure then signed a 4-year contract worth a reported $2.7 million with an $800,000 signing bonus. The deal made Bure the Canucks' second highest paid player behind team captain Trevor Linden. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's hard to explain to someone, let's say you're listening to this, you're 30, 32, 33 years of age, and all you know about Russia is Putin and warring country. But back in 1991, with the fall of the Soviet Union, the Russians were bankrupt. So they were trying to do everything they could, sport by sport basis, to pay or play. They were figuring with Fedorov you could get some money out of it. They got $250,000. Leaving the Russians go had nothing to do with anything that certain players were too old, what I call the 28 and over wave, which is Makarov and the others were part of. But Bure was literally the Wayne Gretzky of Russia or the USSR, and a lot of people felt he would be lost forever to the Russians if he decided to finally come over. Now, due to the court proceedings, Bure's debut with the Canucks was delayed until a month into the 1991-92 season. Gathering much attention in Vancouver, his first practice with the club on November 3rd, 91 was attended by approximately 2,000 people. He played his first game for the Canucks on November 5th, 91 in a 2-2 tie against the Jets. Despite not scoring a point, he showcased his talent and speed with several end-to-end rushes, carrying the puck past several defenders from near his defensive zone to the opposing net. Following the game, Vancouver Sun columnist Ian McIntyre compared him to a rocket, which led to his nickname, the Russian Rocket. He called him the fastest Soviet creation since Sputnik. Now, the Russian Rocket echoed the nickname of Maurice Rocket Richard, who played for the Habs in the 1950s. Who would have thought in a million years that Maurice Richard would motivate the media to name a Russian expat the Russian Rocket? In his third game, he scored his first point, an assist against the Islanders on November 10th. He scored his first 2 NHL goals in his next game on November 12th against Daniel Berthiaume of the Kings. He finished the season with 34 goals and 60 points in 65 games, including 22 goals in his final 23 games. In the last game of the regular season, he scored a goal to tie Ivana Linka's 82 team mark for most points by a rookie. Now, the legendary Bure cannot be understated what it took to get him in. But let's put this in perspective. In 91, he had 35 goals with Siska. 92, he had 34. Then back-to-back 60-goal seasons with Vancouver in 93, 94. So the full NHL totals, 437 goals and 67 with the Soviet League. He scored back-to-back 58 and 59-goal seasons with the Panthers. And again, he would not, for his early retirement, due to a lot of situations, on the ice and off the ice, including injuries. But we're not going to go much into his, again, the alleged mafia connections, because I think that's something for a better journalist with more research. But if you look into it, CBC was really, really pushing hard about money laundering, saying that most of it was rumors. So, but where are you going to find $50,000 just like that? You do the math. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Pavel Bure got to the NHL and got to Canada in a very interesting way, which led to Valerie coming over, led to Candace Cameron marrying him. She's probably a better person knowing him. And but somebody once told me all Canadians are communists, and I said, "Do you like Candace Cameron?" And he said, "Yeah, well." I said she married a communist called Valerie. Guy had no idea that Bure was a Russian. Well, I said, you're criticizing me, but this Christian, motivator married a man who was a communist. His name was Valerie, but Valerie was 1/10 of his brother, and he was that good. He was a 20-goal scorer, and he was 1/10 the talent of his brother. No offense, because Pavel, what a playmaker, and. Playing in Vancouver, you got to be strong, and he was strong. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the strange, true, tall tale of Pavel Bure, how he found his way. And it took somebody like Pat Quinn and Vancouver Canucks, not known for being the smartest tools in the shed, because they traded Vive and Dorlego and traded Cam Neely. So they must have smartened up in the meantime. So this is the same team that traded Vive and Dorlego for Tiger Williams, and also traded Cam Neely. Anyway, if you like what you're doing here, we're a vintage hockey podcast and the Russians. Let us know what a like, comment, subscribe, or share. 1,500 subs. Let's do it by the end of the weekend. Thanks for listening. Bye.